father, he was saying like, drop the. I'm sorry, my first English is not English.
No, you're doing really well.
He was saying drop the. Oh.
The knife or the gun?
The gun. And Brendan said, no, police, don't drop the knife. And then he was saying, I'm gonna kill her. And I don't know if he started stabbing her. I think Brendan shot him. And he asked me help to shot him too because...
It's okay. You don't have to get it all out right now.
I never saw that before.
You didn't see the girl before either? So the guy and the girl you don't know?
She's my boss.
Okay.
His father is mom. But I never seen it before.
In the early hours of February 24th, 2024, Juliana walked in on her boss Christine, who was bleeding from multiple stab wounds, from what looked like a home invasion gone wrong. She immediately called 911 and requested medical help.
Can you come down with me?
Anybody else say blow? Yeah, she breathed, but she's got WhatsApp.
I need to talk to her. She doesn't know anything. What's
Can we get her and we'll go outside?
Yeah, I'm gonna get her.
But when police arrived, there was a crucial information she forgot to mention, that she had been secretly sleeping with her boss husband for the past 6 months, and the both of had been planning on building a new life together.
Where's my daughter?
I think she's out there with him, so.
Were you hit with anything? A knife? Anything?
No, I took the knife. I took the knife from him.
Okay.
511 Bravo, got one up at House Tavern in front of
right now. They're not gonna have much of an update. They're gonna take an arrest in the hospital, okay? I don't see any wounds on you. I'm just gonna check you out. Would you like to run up to the hospital?
Can I be with her?
They're gonna work on her when they get there. You wouldn't be able to see her immediately anyway.
What's gonna happen to my daughter?
That I'm not sure. That's a question
As of
for the
right now, I
officers.
believe she's sitting with one of our officers until we figure out what all is going on.
This is Brendan Banfield, and according to him, early that morning after he left for work, he made a quick stop at a nearby McDonald's, and that was when Juliana the nanny called him in a panic, telling him there was a strange car in the driveway and an unrecognized man had entered the house. He immediately turned around and drove back home. When he arrived, he and Juliana entered through the back door together. He left Juliana downstairs and went up to investigate. What he says he found in his bedroom stopped him cold. A strange man was holding a knife to his wife Christine, pointing it towards her throat. Brendan identified himself as a police officer and ordered the man to drop the knife, but when the man refused, this prompted Brendan to fire his gun, hitting the man's shoulder. While paramedics fought to keep Christine alive, one question was growing louder by the minute. Who was the dead man lying beside her? And that single question would blow this entire case wide open. Welcome to Crime Connect. This episode is about trust. The most dangerous person in your life is not always a stranger. Sometimes it is the person sitting across from you at dinner. Christine and Brendan Banfield met at Quinnipiac University, and the two immediately fell in love. In the summer of 2010, they got married and started building a life together on Long Island before relocating to Herndon, Virginia, in 2019 for better career opportunities. Brendan had just landed a role as a criminal investigation agent for the IRS, while Christine was thriving as a pediatric ICU nurse. From the outside, everything looked perfect. A picture-perfect couple with successful careers and a beautiful life. But behind closed doors, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. In 2013, Brendan started having an affair with another woman, and occasionally he would take the woman to his matrimonial home whenever Christine isn't around. This went on for about 1 year before Christine found out. Christine confronted him about it, and he apologized, begging and claiming it won't happen again. Brendan claimed he only wanted to get more sex that she was giving him. After so much back and forth, Christine forgave him with a condition, that they both attend couples therapy. This took a toll on their marriage, but Christine kept holding up. She kept showing up to fight for her marriage. In 2018, they welcomed their daughter Valerie. For Christine, This was an opportunity to rekindle their love and bond as a family. But with 2 demanding careers and a young daughter at home, Christine and Brendan made a decision that many busy families make. They decided to hire a live-in nanny. Her name was Juliana. When Juliana arrived in October 2021, she was the perfect nanny. Polite, warm, and she bonded quickly with Christine. But Juliana was also smart. She started paying close attention, watching how Brendan and Christine interacted. She noticed the distance between them, the cracks, the misunderstandings, and slowly, quietly, she began positioning herself to fill those gaps. So when Christine was at work pulling long shifts at the hospital, it was Juliana who was home with Brendan. It was Juliana who sat across from him at dinner. It was Juliana who was there in the quiet moments that a marriage is built on. And Brendan, a man who had already cheated on his wife multiple times before Juliana ever walked through that door, saw a lifetime opportunity and grabbed it. It all started one evening while Christine was away. Something in the atmosphere shifted. Over dinner, Juliana moved her chair closer to Brendan. He didn't move away. He didn't stop her. That was the green light she had been waiting for. Later that night, she followed him into the bedroom, and he let her in. This was the beginning of a betrayal that would change everything. The two spent the next few months growing their affair, far beyond just stolen moments. They were living together, sleeping together, and planning a future together, all under the same roof as Christine. Seeing how life could be with Juliana, Brendan began making promises no married man should ever make to another woman. He told her he wanted to marry her, have children together, and build a whole new life. All this while Christine had absolutely no idea. They went on romantic trips together, made memories together, and took pictures together, like a couple deeply in love. But there was always one problem standing between them, and that problem was Christine. Brendan didn't want to file for divorce. Not because he wanted to save his marriage, but because divorce meant Christine would get more money than him. It meant splitting custody of his daughter. It meant losing everything he had built. In his mind, divorce was not an option, and that was when things took a very dark and sinister turn. Remember the man who was said to have broken inside the home that morning? That man was Joseph Ryan. Joseph had absolutely no business being in the Banfield home that day. He was truly a stranger, but unfortunately, a victim of catfishing. He would be tricked and framed in the worst possible way you can ever imagine. For weeks leading up to the murder, Joseph had been exchanging messages online with someone he believed was Christine Banfield. From his perspective, he was talking to a woman in an unhappy marriage who had certain desires she wanted to explore. The conversations were detailed, specific, and felt completely real to him. He had no reason to doubt who he was speaking to. The profile had her name, her photos, her details. To Joseph, Christine was a real woman reaching out to him. But Christine knew nothing about any of it. She had never been on FetLife. She had never sent those messages. She had never invited anyone to her home. While Joseph was on his phone making plans with who he thought was Christine, the real Christine was going about her life, going to work, caring for her daughter, trusting her husband, completely unaware that her identity was being used to lure a stranger to her front door. Two people, both being deceived, both walking towards the same devastating fate. Neither of them had any idea what was actually waiting for them. On February 24, 2023, just as planned, Brendan left for work while Juliana took their daughter Valerie to the zoo. Joseph arrived at the house following all the instructions he had been given. The door was unlocked just as promised. He walked in. He went upstairs. Meanwhile, Juliana returned to the house, claiming she had forgotten a bag. When she saw Joseph, she immediately called Brendan, who rushed back home. When Brendan arrived, he and Juliana entered through the back door together. They left Christine's 4-year-old daughter in the basement, and they went upstairs. What they found in that bedroom was exactly what they had planned. Joseph was there with Christine, who was terrified and crying for help. Brendan announced himself as a police officer and ordered Joseph to drop the knife. Christine, confused and terrified, screamed out to her husband for help. Brendan fired his service weapon once, hitting Joseph. But Joseph was still alive. Brendan immediately instructed Juliana to go to the bathroom, open the safe, and retrieve the second firearm. She did exactly as she was told. She came back and fired a second shot, straight into Joseph's chest. That shot killed him instantly. And then Brendan turned to his wife, Christine, who had just watched all of this unfold in her own bedroom, who had no idea why any of it was happening, who had screamed out to her husband for help, now looked into the eyes of the man she had loved for 13 years. And he picked up the knife, and he stabbed her 7 times in her neck. Christine Banfield, a woman who had spent her entire life caring for others, was left bleeding on her bedroom floor. Even in those final moments, she told Juliana to call 911, fighting until the very end. She was rushed to hospital, but her injuries were too severe.
What room to put you in? You wanna see us?
No, not yet.
Can you have someone check this in here?
Hi, sir. My name is Gina. I'm one of the doctors here. Your wife has died. She died of blood loss. Her airway was actually okay. I'll call the medical examiner, of course, and we'll do an autopsy and make sure we know for
Yes.
certain. But
I was trying to.
That evening, Christine Banfield was pronounced dead. She was 37 years old. And that is exactly what brings us back to where this story began. That body cam footage you saw at the very start of this video. Because now you know the truth behind every single word Juliana said to those officers that morning. But here is the thing about a perfect plan. There is no such thing. And Brendan was about to find that out the hard way. From the moment investigators walked into that house, something didn't feel right. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no kicked-in doors. Nothing in the house was disturbed. For a supposed home invasion, everything was remarkably neat and undisturbed. And then there was Brendan's behavior. While paramedics were right in front of him, fighting to save his wife's life, Brendan wasn't asking about Christine. He wasn't holding her hand. He wasn't crying out for her to hold on. Instead, he was asking repeatedly whether Joseph was still alive. Not his wife, the stranger. That is not how an innocent man behaves. But what really blew the case open was what investigators found on Christine's laptop. A fake FetLife profile created in her name, her photos, her details, messages arranging the encounter with Joseph. And here is the detail that sealed everything. The profile had been accessed and used while Christine was home, meaning someone else in that house was using her identity right under her nose. Digital forensics then traced everything back to Brendan and Juliana, the fake emails, the messages to Joseph, the phone calls posing as Christine. Every digital footprint led straight back to them. And then came the blood spatter analysis. This was the final nail in the coffin. Forensic experts proved that both bodies had been moved and repositioned after the attack. And most damningly, Christine's blood had been deliberately smeared onto Joseph's arms. Someone had staged that entire scene, and that someone was Brendan Banfield. By October 2023, 8 months after the murders, investigators had built enough of a case to make their first arrest. And interestingly, it was Juliana they came for first. She was charged with the second-degree murder of Joseph Ryan. But when investigators returned to the Banfield home to arrest her, what they found stopped them in their tracks. Remember how Juliana had her own bedroom when she first moved in? Well, that room was now empty. Her clothes, her belongings, her life, all of it had been moved into the master bedroom, Christine's bedroom. Juliana was already sleeping in Christine's bed, using Christine's space, and living Christine's life. It hadn't even been a year since Christine was murdered. And if that wasn't enough, sitting on the bedside table was a framed photo of Brendan and Juliana together, smiling, like a couple without a care in the world. Brendan, meanwhile, remained a free man, walking around, raising his daughter, going about his life as if nothing had happened. But investigators were watching, and they were listening. In recorded jail calls between Brendan and Juliana, Juliana asked him directly, "I hope you are not just staying with me because you are afraid of me turning against you." Brendan's response was chilling. keep your mouth shut. Those 4 words said everything. It wasn't until August 2024 that blood spatter analysis finally confirmed what investigators had suspected all along. Brendan had staged the entire scene, and on September 16, 2024, Brendan Banfield was finally arrested and charged with aggravated murder. The perfect plan had completely fallen apart. When Brendan finally walked into that courtroom, he had one last card to play. He took the stand in his own defense and told the jury that everything Juliana had said was a lie. He called the murder plot absolutely crazy. He said he loved his wife. He never wanted to end his marriage. But the prosecution wasn't having any of it. Juliana took the stand and testified against Brendan for 3 days. She told the jury everything: the affair, the planning, the FetLife profile, the shooting range, the staged crime scene. Every single detail laid out in open court. And the evidence spoke for itself: the blood spatter analysis, the digital footprints, the gun receipt, and the jail call where Brendan told her to keep her mouth shut. Even Brendan's own boss testified that the important work, meeting Brendan claimed he was heading to that morning, never existed. The jury deliberated for nearly 9 hours, and on February 2, 2026, they returned their verdict.
In criminal case number FE 2024-666, count 1, we, the jury on the issue, join in the case of the Commonwealth of Virginia versus Brendan Robert Banfield, defendant, find the defendant guilty of aggravated murder of Joseph Ryan and Christine Banfield as part of the same act or transaction.
Guilty on all counts. Brendan Banfield now faces life in prison with no possibility of parole. Juliana was sentenced to 10 years. In her statement to the court, she said, "I lost myself in a relationship, leaving my morals and values behind. I am truly sorry for the pain I caused. Sorry. After everything, just sorry." Christine Banfield was not supposed to die that day. She was a nurse, a mother, and a wife who gave everything to the people around her. She was betrayed in the most unimaginable way, by the man who vowed to love and protect her, and the woman she had welcomed into her home with open arms. Joseph Ryan was an innocent man who walked into a trap he never saw coming. He deserved better. His mother deserved better. And little Valerie, 4 years old, lost her mother that morning, then lost her father to a prison cell. Through absolutely no fault of her own, her entire world was taken from her. She is now being raised by Christine's parents, people who loved her mother deeply. Brendan thought he had planned the perfect crime. He was wrong. Christine may not have survived, but her story did, and that has to count for something. Let me leave you with this question. What do you think of a live-in nanny? Drop your opinion below. Let's discuss.